So what we're going to do is we're going to go over percents, fractions, decimals, and ratios while understanding a percent. So on the page I gave you, the first question says 2%. Okay? So what we're going to learn is we're going to learn how to change percentages into fractions, then from the fraction to the decimal, and then we're going to talk about how ratios are related to that. So a percent, and I'll do this on the side here in a different color. Percent, so we have the number 2%. Any percentage is out of 100. You can't actually get more than 100%, let's say, okay, for now. So we have the number 2. We take the 2 and we put it over 100. Okay, so that's our fraction. Our fraction is 2 over 100. But what can we do to this fraction?
We can
Reduce it. What would it be if it was reduced?
1 out of 50.
Yeah, that's right. 1 out of 50. So our fractions, we're going to call it, well, for now we're just going to say it's 2 out of 100, okay? So we're going to keep these all out of 100 so that we're easy. Our decimal, what we do is we divide that. 2, and this is what a fraction means. A fraction means 2. This line here means divided by. So this is 2 divided by 100. So we'll also do that in blue. What that means is we have the number 2, and it's divided by 100. So it looks like that. Now it's a little difficult for us to work with right now, but we can use a calculator for that, okay? So I'm going to bring up a little calculator. There you go. No, we don't need to be that complicated. So we take the number 2 divided by 100 equals 0.02. So that's it as a decimal, 0.02. So we do a 0.02. Now finally a ratio. A ratio is the exact same thing as a fraction, okay? It's just a relationship between two numbers. So we know that out of 100 there are 2. That's the ratio we have here. There are 2 out of 100. An equivalent ratio is also 1 out of 50, or we could do another ratio. Another ratio we could use is, I want you guys to get used to this idea. First of all, we started at 2 over 100, but let's say we brought it down to 1 over 50. Ratios tend to be brought to, they want you to keep it as a unit, okay? So 1 over 50. But this is an equivalent ratio. Let's say we started at 1 over 50 and we went to 2 over 100. What did we multiply by to get there?
Multiply by 2.
That's right, we multiply by 2. Now we can do this any number of times. Let's say we want to make another equivalent ratio. What can we multiply by?
We can multiply by, I believe, 4.
Sure. So let's multiply by 4. 1 over 50 multiplied by 4. What would that look like?
That would be 4 over 200.
Yeah, that's right. These are all equivalent ratios. Now we're writing them in fraction form. You girls are probably used to seeing them like this. You'll say like 1 to 50, or 2 to 100, or what we have is 4 to 200. These are all equivalent ratios, okay? And it's just like a fraction. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, because ratios we like to write in unit means to the power of 1. Okay, our fraction, not the power of 1, but we want our fraction to be 1. So our ratio is 1 to 50, okay? That's what we're going to call it. So for every 50, let's say for every 50 cans I get, one of them's blue. That's what that means. If I were to get another 50 cans, so I had 100, I'd have 2 blue. The ratio keeps building and building, just like what we did here. 50 cans, 1's blue. If I get 100 cans, 2 of them are blue. If I get 200 cans, 4 of them are blue. That's the idea behind it. Okay? So I want you to talk me through the next one. I'm going to quickly just erase what we have down here. Okay? So the next question says 8%. What would 8% be as a fraction?
It will be 8 over 100.
That's right, 8 over 100. Now, how would I solve that as a decimal?
You would divide 8 divided by 100.
That's right, 8 divided by 100.
No, 0.08.
Nice. Okay. 0.08. Finally, a ratio.
Reduce it.
Yeah, let's try to reduce this fraction. So what can I divide both of these by?
2.
2. So let's divide them by 2.
4 over 50.
Okay. Can I reduce that?
Yeah, it goes by 2 again.
2 again. So let's write that. 4 over 50 divided by 2 divided by 2. What do we get?
That'll be 2 over 25.
2 over 25. Can I reduce that anymore?
No.
No, that's
So
reduced.
the ratio will be 2 25.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you girls to do on your sheets, because I know you don't have that extra one, I want you to make a ratio column, okay? I want you to try those. Okay, so we're still doing understanding fractions. Okay, first thing, understanding percent. Let's talk about we're going to have 3 examples on the next page, okay? So example 1 is turning a percent to a fraction. So turning percent to a fraction. Okay, so changing or turning a percent to a fraction. So we've already gone over this, but let's do another one. Let's say we have the number 50. Okay, we have 50%. That's pretty easy for us to figure out how to do this one. 50%. Okay, but what you can do is you can also think of this as fractions. Have you guys done multiplying fractions? Yeah. Okay, so think of 50%. You can think of it as a fraction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the number 50, okay, and I'm going to put it as 50 over 1, and I'm going to multiply it by 1 over 100, okay? When I multiply that, 50 times 1 is
50.
Yeah, and 1 times 100 is
100.
100. And voila, we have our fraction. Our fraction is 50 over 100. Now, can I reduce this fraction?
Yeah.
What can I reduce it to?
You can reduce it by 50.
Yeah. So if I divide both top and bottom by 50, what do I get?
1.5.
Yeah, 1 over 2. Now, I showed you this with the fractions, but really the fastest way to do this, and we'll do it in blue, we'll call this the fast route, okay? Fast. If I have 50%, what do you girls think I just need to do?
Really, yes, really what you have to do is like the same thing you have to talk, just multiply 50 over 1 over 100.
Okay, there's another way. Look at this number here. All I have to do with fractions is put them over 100. That'd be the fast way. So if I have the number 50, I just go 50 over 100, finished.
And you can reduce.
And then I can reduce, yeah, and we reduce, it becomes 1 over a half, right? So that's a quick way of turning a percent to a fraction, okay? Let's do another example. Now our second example, okay, we'll call it fraction to a percent, okay. So this is a fraction to a percent. So they've given us an example of the fraction of 1 over a fourth. There's a couple ways we can do this, okay? One of the ways they've done it is we have to figure out how to make the denominator equal 100. Oops, I forgot that. It's got to equal 100, okay? So if that's the case, we need the denominator to equal 100. We have to figure out what we have to multiply the denominator by. We'll multiply by some number to get to 100. Whatever that number is, we're going to then multiply the top number by the same thing to make our new fraction. Okay? Do you girls know what we would multiply 4 by to get 100?
25.
That's right. If we multiply by 25, okay? 4 times 25 is 100. 1 times 25 is 25. Okay. Now you girls did that in your head. I'm going to show you a mathematical way to do that. So again, let's say we had 1 over 4, and we know we needed to get it to 100. But I'm having a really hard time, let's say, figuring out what I have to multiply by. What I can do is take the number 100 and divide it by 4. Okay? Now 4, does it go into 1? No. Does it go into 10?
Yeah.
How many times?
2 times.
Twice. 4 times 2 is
8.
8, so we draw the 8 down here for our division, and we subtract. 10 subtract 8.
2.
We bring down the 0. 4 goes into 20 how many times?
5 times.
5. 4 times 5 is?
20.
We subtract it. Any remainder?
0.
0. And look at that. When we do that, I'm going to circle it in blue, that's the number we have to multiply by, right? Our 25. So we've just found it. We know that we have to multiply 4 times 25 to get to 100. So then I just multiply the top by that same number, and I get my fraction is 25 over 100. Okay? That's one way to do it. There's another way we could do this. It would be the same idea as turning a decimal to a fraction. Okay? So what's also good about decimals is we can put them over 100 also, just like we had done before. So let's say I'm going to call this turning a decimal to a fraction. We'll call this example 3. Okay? Turning a decimal to a fraction. Now, let's say we're working with decimals here. I have a decimal 0.25. Okay. To make a decimal a fraction, this is what you really need to do. You have to figure out how many spaces there are. So the decimal's here. So under the 0 before the decimal, we always have the number 1. And then we add zeros depending on, oh, I forgot that it does that. We add zeros depending on how many numbers are after the decimal. So because there's 1, 2 numbers after the decimal, we add 2 zeros. Okay? So we can get rid of the decimal, and this turns into this fraction, 25 over 100. Okay? Same idea happens like this. Let's say I have, we'll call this A. Let's say we have B, question B, okay? We have 0.3. Well, if I'm going to turn that into a decimal, it's the same idea. I put a 1 to the left of the decimal, so over the 0. How many numbers are after the decimal?
4.
Just 1, number 3, right?
Yeah.
So that as a decimal becomes 3 over 10. Sorry, not as a decimal, as a fraction, when we turn it into a fraction. Okay? So we've turned that into a fraction. Right? Just like we were doing up here, we were turning fractions into a percent. Oh, I forgot to do a step there. Silly me. Okay, let's go. Well, okay, let's finish this. Turning a decimal into a fraction. So we've turned that decimal into a fraction. And finally, let's do one other example. Let's say we had the number 3.424. This is a tough one. I'm going to make this into a fraction. How many numbers are to the left of the decimal? 1. So I put a 1 there. And how many numbers are to the right?
3.
So 1, 2, 3. So as a fraction, this becomes 3, 4, 2, 4 over what number? 1,000. Okay. You see how that worked to get that? Yeah. Keys are there. Okay. So we've turned these into fractions. Okay. And just like we had done up here, what we forgot to do is we forgot to complete the final step, turning a fraction into a percent, okay? So let's go back up here to example 2, which I forgot to finish. So we have this as a decimal fraction, 25 over 100. To turn it into a percent, all we need to do is we just need to take the top number, because once it's over 100, that's the percent we're going to have. So now that we're over 100, this number is 25%. Okay, simple as that. So we always want to change our decimals into fractions that are over 100. We want to try to get them into over 100, okay? So for instance, this one here just becomes 25% if we need to change it to a percent. Now this one here I want to change to 100. So what would I do to my 3 over 10?
You will multiply that by 10.
Multiply by 10, multiply by 10. I would get 30 over 100. And then that's it. That's 30%. Good. This one's a little harder. What do I have to do to this? I have to make it a little smaller, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to need to divide by a number. Do you know?
You divide by 2.
You could, but if I want to make a 100, I got to get rid of a 0. So I'm going to divide by 10. So divide this by 10, and I divide this by 10. Okay? Now I'm going to tell you what that's going to become. It's going to make the bottom 100. It's going to make the top number 342.4. So what is our percent here? Yeah, so 342.4%. Okay, it's the same idea. You just want to make all of our fractions over 100 and then take the top number. Okay, and what's the last thing they have? Last thing they have is a mixed fraction. Okay, so say example 4, turning a mixed fraction into a percent, right? Okay, so let's say they have that next number there. They're using 2 and a fifth, right? Now you know how to turn a mixed fraction into an improper fraction?
Yeah.
Now we quickly multiply. 5 times 2 is 10, add 1 is 11. So we have our improper fraction, right? Same idea. I need to make the denominator what? 100. So what am I going to multiply 5 by to get to 100?
20.
That's right. I multiply by 20. So I'm going to multiply the top by that same number, okay? 11 times 20. Do it over here. Show you a quick way. Bring the 0 down. 2 times. That's right. So we get 220. Now what is this fraction, 220 over 100, as a percentage?
220%.
That's right. We just take the top number, 220%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. You girls go through that. Okay.